Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert.
And Ryan.
What are we talking about today, Ryan?
All right, so it's that time of the year again. It's about to be the Oscars when we're recording this tomorrow, in fact. And for our fourth time and for the fifth year of us sort of doing this, we're gonna give rank our opinions of the 10 Best Picture nominees. We've been doing this since 2020. Well, the award show in 2021 for the movies in 2020.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I like doing it. I like watching all these best pictures, even if sometimes there's movies in there that aren't that good. I feel like it gets us to watch movies we wouldn't have otherwise, and sometimes they are quite good.
Absolutely. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's always really nice to be to get outside your comfort zone or outside, your general venue of what movies you would watch. And oftentimes I've been like really surprised in the past or like just like, wow, I'm so glad that I was pushed to watch that movie. And so I would say that I would agree with that this year. However, I was holding off talking about this. Me and Ryan were talking before this, but we wanted to make sure that we didn't, sort of get into too much. And
Yeah.
you asked me, what was the question that you asked me right before we started, Ryan?
Are there any movies in this best picture listing that you think are not good?
And my answer was yes. And my general opinion, now that we're here and I wanted to share it while we're recording, is there's a few movies on here that I truly am like, I don't really know why this is a best picture, other than maybe there just weren't enough good movies last year to vote.
And every year, I feel like every year, because I actually went back and listened to our podcast for the other one of these, and every year, like that we've recorded a podcast for this, I'm like, well, like my favorite movie of the year wasn't nominated for Best Picture, and
Hmm.
this year, and it's not like this is probably the most agreed upon snub year thus far for the movie I like the most. Everyone thinks Challengers has been snubbed by these Oscars.
See, exactly. That totally baffles me. That's legit my like
Like,
number one movie of the
if
year.
not,
We did our ranking.
yeah, we both had it
And
at number one. If not Best Picture, like, you know what? I can accept that it's not for everyone and maybe not Best Picture. It didn't get nominated for score.
it's honestly that's and you like Ryan, you also asked me about like, oh, do you know some of the context around this Oscars? And I don't. Like I'm fresh. You've been tracking it a little more. I
Yeah.
watch my movies, I have my opinions, and but like it really is like I'm like, bro, like Challenger didn't get nominated, but some of these other movies did.
Yeah, some of these other movies absolutely did. Some of these movies actually got the most nominations of this Oscars and are one of the most nominated Oscar movies ever. And I'm gonna guess that it's one of your movies in your lower part.
Probably. I don't know which one you're even talking about, but
What
um
I think you are completely unaware of the controversy of one of these movies, and I'm excited to sort of just give you an inkling on what's going on with that movie.
okay, cool. Well, when we get to it, let's like we'll let it roll out.
Now, I will say, while you do find you dislike a handful of these movies, I'm going to say that I actually do think I enjoyed all 10 movies. I think I actually did find at least something good from all 10 of these movies, even though like my bottom two are it's kind of hard to say I see flaws in some of these movies. I definitely think not all of these needed to be nominated for best picture, but like I don't dislike any of these movies personally, but I can understand why people dislike some of these movies.
I'll say so you said if I thought some of these movies were good. The thing is, I think like every movie in this, no, I didn't rate any of them like below a C.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't say any of these movies were bad. I understood in a sense why they could have been nominated. but I was like, these are not like really good movies. Some of them are just like I don't know why this is a nomination for Oscar. Like I get it because some of them have the vibe of like an Oscar bait, like, whoa, it's kind of artistic and like suggestive, but like in the end, I'm just like, this isn't like an Oscar movie to me.
Okay.
So but I don't want to say they're bad. I would agree with your statement that I felt like I still got something out of them and I could enjoy some of it. And I'll even say that maybe on some of them, I always am willing and humble enough to say like I'm not like a supreme movie critic, and sometimes I'm like maybe this stuff's just going over my head. Maybe somebody else gets up on this the deeper artistic something going on here, or the deeper themes, and I'm just not that guy, you know. But
Yeah.
I digress. I think maybe we should hop into it so we can start talking about them some more specifically.
All right. So which one of us we think should go first?
Okay. What I'm hoping is that maybe our bottoms are the same. So,
I don't think
um,
my number 10 is going to be your number 10, but I think your number 10 is going to be my number 9.
okay. All right.
'Cause
Well, how about you start with your number 10? Let's see.
my number 10, and this may be controversial, is
Hmm.
going to be a complete unknown.
Okay.
The Timothée Chalamet as a Bobby Dylan biopic
Mhm.
movie that, again, because I told you, I say I liked all these movies.
Yeah.
This is just like the movie of them that like just sort of like is the least impactful, sort of special in any way movie to me. Like
Mhm.
it just kind of like it's just like a solid music biopic, and like you know what, I'm fine with it. I'd even say that it's maybe a better directed film than like other musical biopics that have been nominated for best picture, like Bohemian Rhapsody or something like that. Like Bohemian Rhapsody has the fun of having Queen songs that are good songs and that I like and I know, unlike most Bob Dylan songs. i
Mhm.
knew I knew one Bob Dylan song really going into this movie, so a lot of this music doesn't mean anything to me. But yeah, like it's a solid, well-made movie. I just don't like of all these movies, it's also like it feels like the safest movie. It feels like the most like, oh yeah, this is another musical biopic. Do you enjoy it? Good. Here's an actor playing real person. You like this, right? You vote him best actor? Good. We like.
I totally respect that that opinion because I kind of think you're right. It's sort of just a regular movie, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how I came away from it feeling as well. To be totally honest, which like that's kind of how I felt about like a few of the movies where I was like, this was pretty good, but not like I don't. This didn't wow me by any means.
Yeah.
So
Um
what
I,
I'll say is, as we before we go forward, I had that feeling about a few movies, but a few of the movies had like points that like I like would tack against, and that's kind of what made them like end up getting lower. That's why I was sort of saying like before we started, I was like my bottom three were a little easier to do, and my top three were easier to do, but the middles were like harder.
yeah, you did mention that. The one other thing I want to touch upon is that Timothy Chalamet, while he is good in this, um
Hmm.
uh you're not really following the sort of like Oscar thing. So
Hmm.
basically the sort of race for best actor, it has basically mostly been him or Adrian Brody as
Hmm.
taking away the best actor. And we'll talk about Adrian Brody whenever one
Yeah.
of us brings up the Brutalist first.
Hmm.
But I don't think that Timothy Chalamet, like, I won't be upset if he won, but I don't think he's the best lead actor performance that's been nominated. I would actually probably say he's my least favorite of the five nominated.
Yeah.
But again, he's still doing a good job, but like I don't think there's anything that exceptional about this
I
movie.
I will say I agree. I don't think there's anything exceptional about either him in Dune or Complete Unknown. I think he does a good job, but I don't think it's like, fantastic.
Yeah.
Adrian Brody, I mean, we don't need to talk about it too much, but
We'll talk about
yeah,
that.
yeah. So, okay, then well, I think we can move to my number 10.
Your number 10.
And what do you think it is?
I have to assume it's Amelia Perez.
No, it's not.
It's not? Okay.
No.
All right. So
So no, it's a Nora.
when you were starting to talk just now about how you ding movies, there was a thing that went into my head, and I was like, what if he's talking about Honora? That would be crazy. Brother, that's like one of two movies most likely to win Best Picture.
Wow.
I uh,
I
okay, I want to hear your thoughts on this movie.
It feels regular degular. It doesn't feel super like again, it just feels like a story. It's a story that's like, told about a girl and, guy and like some stuff that they get into. And I think her performance is good. I think like, there is some like impact to what, like the things that are going on and like, this slice of life type seeing into a perspective of this, a goings on. But like just nothing about it, like again, just nothing about it wowed me. Like
All
it
right.
it it all felt for me like kind of forgettable. And then this is where I also say like at the end, like there's the point where she's like with the guy, I can't remember what his name was.
Yeah. I
Um
know I know the actor's name is Yuri Borisov because he and Mikey Madison are both nominated for acting awards for the film.
yeah. And like she's with him, like talking with him, there's like this little interplay and stuff. And I'm like, maybe I'm just not like sophisticated enough to get stuff that's going on there. Like maybe there's something bigger or more like you're like, oh wow, this interesting interaction between her and this guy and like them and all this and stuff. And I'm like, maybe I just don't get it. Maybe I'm just not smart enough for that. And I admit that that's maybe everybody, everybody's seeing more than what I'm seeing. But I'm just like, what is this? What even is this?
All right, I'll give the slight spoiler that this is not my favorite of the Best Picture nominees. And last when I was doing my top 10 lists for last year, it wasn't in my top 10. However, it was like it would have been like my 12 or 13, like right outside of my top 10 list because I do think it's a good movie, and I'll talk more of that later when I give my side of it. But wow, that's actually really interesting that you would have it that low. Um, yeah, that's that's interesting. How do you feel? So I'll get Mikey Madison, she's nominated. It's like for best actress, it's kind of close between her, Demi Moore, and Fernanda Torres, who is the lead in I'm Still Here. How do you feel about that?
Um, like honestly, I think her performance is one of like the better things in the whole movie. Like
Okay.
for a movie that I felt like was just pretty like whatever. I'm like performance. I think it was good. Like I really felt like I felt her character. I felt like she really owned that a lot. And so I respect. I think that's totally fine. As far as I think that's entirely fine. I'm okay with that.
But the movie itself just doesn't wow you. I get
Like I came away from I always try to ask myself like how did this make me feel? And I really just came away from it feeling like okay, well that was a movie, you know.
yeah. All right. Well, I'll talk more about it later.
Okay.
But you can move
Cool.
into your number nine then.
Then my number 9 is going to be Nickel Boys.
All right. That start talking about it. It's not too far away from me, but it's not my number nine.
Yeah. So Nickel Boys, there's things about it like the again the story is interesting. Performances are fairly good. I wouldn't say they're like stand out by any means. And I really appreciated like the perspective view
Yeah.
um of like I thought it was a really cool way to film it and like how we kind of switch between them and how that plays into like the twist sort of. And so I really respected that as far as like the film crafting. What I felt like is at like a certain point, it kind of there was something, and it's again it being in the past. there's something about like how the story like sort of like broke down a little bit for me and like a couple little things that they do, like again, like artistic things. Like I think there was like points where it just like displayed like, like color on the screen and like noises and stuff. And I was
Mhm.
like trying to read into that. And again, I admit maybe I'm just not sophisticated enough to get the better, greater depth of meaning. I like that it shares light on maybe like a what I assume was like I don't know if this was an actual based on true story, or if it was more like similar to true story.
It's adapted from a book, and the book
Mhm.
is like inspired by true events. So like there is
Right.
like a real academy, but it's not called Nickel Academy. It was called
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah. And so I respect that, something like this can shed a little light on a events like that, just, allow that to be brought, into the public view that like, atrocities have occurred in the past. But like, yeah, something about like just how it all plays out. And then even like, I think I remember thinking like the ending kind of just like came to a point where I was just like, huh, okay, you know. And again, it was like fair enough, pretty good movie. I think I actually really liked a lot more like sort of the beginning and like middle, and then the end sort of fell off a little for me. Um, but I thought the twist was okay. I thought I was like,
So,
oh, okay, and
but you did not see the twist coming.
I did sort of pick up on it at like the three-quarters mark. I think there was a point where it was being weird, like he wasn't like turning his face, and he like came in there and like there was like they gave a bigger hint earlier
So
on.
if you recognize the actor that is portraying the future version of the guy, there's a
Mhm.
something about that actor that sort of gives away what the twist is because he he has a resemblance to one of the guys, not the other guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And so I think I started picking when again like when I think it shows him in the back and the guy comes to the bar and he's like, "Oh, you and that guy just hang
yeah,
around or something and
yeah.
whatnot." So
Yeah, it was
that's
that
where I'd
exact
be
scene
like,
where I was
"Huh."
like, "Oh, okay, that's what's happening."
Yeah, and I also thought there was something a little weird about like the first time it shows him in the future, like with like where he has a girlfriend in there. I thought there was something a little off about that too, but I didn't pick up on it quite then. So it was again, there's a lot about that's good and cool, but again, I didn't. I think I again the thing I did appreciate was the perspective view. I thought that was cool. I thought it was a cool way to portray the movie, really interesting and unique. But otherwise, I wasn't overly wowed by the story. Sometimes what I ask for, and I think I put a lot of these up to that scale, is like, how much did this make me feel?
Hmm.
And like a few parts kind of did, like a little bit, but like I just don't think it really captured me a lot. And that, maybe that's just me in particular, but that's just how I ended up feeling.
I'll try to save a little more of my thoughts for when I talk about it because it's not too far away from me on my list. But
Hmm.
if you're done, I can move into my number nine.
Yep.
My number nine, which I gave away already, is going to be Amelia Perez.
Hmm.
So, this movie, I actually think I liked more than my ranking sort of gives away when I first watched it, because I thought it was kind of like a very bold thing. Like I thought like the what it was doing was very interesting. I was sort of like captivated by it, even though like the music in it isn't like catchy music. There's no song that you leave the movie wanting to sing. I thought the musical sequences, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them like sort of were engaging to me and interesting. I think Zoe Saldana um uh, is very very good in this movie. There's a reason why she is basically won every supporting actress award for this movie, even though I think she should be the lead actress. Like I think she is in more of the movie than Amelia Perez is.
Hmm.
Um, uh,
I
but
will say real quick, it's my number eight. Or
okay, so
so
all right, so
so
we can talk about
yeah,
this
yeah,
together now. All right,
yeah,
and we can talk about how controversial this movie is
yeah.
because you don't
So
know.
everything you're saying so far, I pretty much agree with. One, like let's say there's like a trans person lead in this movie. Cool. So
Yeah,
I'm sure that that's got some controversy around it or whatever.
but
But
not in the way you think.
maybe not. So, but one, okay, and again, I don't care about that. Like I don't that doesn't affect my opinion of anything. I just look at a movie and I watch a movie. So one, I think this had a really interesting beginning, like the beginning of the story. I'm like, wow, what an interesting thing. Like, oh, a drug lord is gonna like escape from his life by, living his real life as a woman. I'm like, wow, that's like a really interesting way. They incorporated the music, which, as you said, like the music isn't by any means catchy, but it's really interesting how they bring it in. Zoe Saldana's performance is fucking spectacular, which
It
is
is the
maybe
best thing
why.
of the movie.
Yeah, it's exact. I believe, and that's probably why to me it makes it above like a Nora Nickelboys because like her performance and like her dancing and singing performances
Mhm.
really like shine. And I thought like this was a more unique story overall. And so like the beginning of the movie felt like overall that it just stuck with me a little more. I was a little more interested in it. And then to be like honestly, this was a movie where like the ending was kind of just like oh, like that's kind of how it ends. Like I don't know if it was supposed to be going with some kind of like Romeo and Juliet tragic thing. It just was like
Yeah.
it didn't end very well. I even literally just thought of like I think I can't think of what it was now, but like I remember I watched it with Angela and I said I was like this probably would have been a better ending. Like if they let it kind of go like this and I proposed something that probably would have been more satisfying overall. And so like that's why I mean like this could have been higher. I could have actually enjoyed this more if it didn't really stick its landing. So but I thought there was a lot of good points and the end was just like unsatisfying.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's why it's actually, I mean, like Anora, like just felt too flat to me. Didn't really care about most of it. Like performance was good, but like overall, it was just like whatever. Nickel Boys kind of had some good, but it was overall also kind of flat. Like it didn't hit a lot of high emotional points, even though there were, there were some deep points in Nickel Boys, but like Amelia Perez brought a few more strong points out of it that made me enjoy it more up
Gotcha.
until kind of the ending.
All right.
Now I want to hear more about what you have to say, but also whatever this controversy is.
All right, I'm gonna start with a controversy because I think I wouldn't have had this movie much higher on my list, but I think I would have had it higher on my list had there not been some of the controversy around it. First of all, most opinions on this movie outside of like certain critical Hollywood circles are people that don't like this movie. Like it gets ripped apart. Like some people like hate this movie. Think and not even for like the controversy of it. There are people that are just like, this movie's boring. It's not interesting. The music's bad. Like the plot is bad. Like and like I like that's one aspect of it. Another aspect is that Mexican audiences and trans audiences are both find the movie kind of offensive. Mexican audiences because it's like portraying Mexico as this like sort of like a drug like violent drug world where the none of the main actors in the movie are actually Mexican and apparently I don't speak Spanish but apparently some of their accents are really bad. I think particularly Selena Gomez gets critiqued for
I
it.
I felt that. I literally was like, and I guess they kind of there's a so I said that, and Angela was like, I think it's okay. And I was like, and she also says somewhere in the beginning something about, oh, we're gonna go back to America. So I think that was like a throwout line to explain why she sounds more American. But I remember
Yeah.
thinking the same thing. I was like, yeah, her accent's like bad. Like why? Like I literally was like, why is she in this?
Also, and the director is a French director, and it's mostly shot in France, I believe. Um,
Mhm.
uh, and then the transness of it all, like the lead is trans, but it's again written by a not trans person, and so many trans people see this movie as like a bad narrative, like to say like, oh, trans people are hiding something when they become trans, like Amelia Perez is hiding the her violent past, and then has to be killed at the end to be punished, basically. Like I don't have the full sort of nuanced take from either side. I just know there are many people from those demographics that have issues with the movie from that perspective.
Mhm.
Um, and then this movie had the most nominations of any movie this year at the Oscars. It had 13 total nominations, um, putting it like in tied with like other movies having second most nominations of any movie. um, which again people like were kind of baffled by. because there's obviously this movie has a contingency of people that really like it in awards groups because it wins awards and it gets nominated for awards, but it's kind of at the same time it's kind of baffling like how much it's getting.
Mm.
But the movie faced a lot of controversy with the director saying some off-color stuff, like referring to wanting to portray Spanish speaking because Spanish is the language of like third world countries, I believe is what he said. And
Mm.
then Carlos Sofia Gascon, the lead actress who plays Emilia Perez, was found to have basically straight up racist tweets in her past. And so she's got facing controversy now, and so the whole movie has faced like a thing of controversy. So it's kind of lost some of its steam and appeal. But
Mm.
yeah, it's controversial.
Hmm. Heavy sigh.
Yeah,
It's like not even really that good enough of a movie to be that controversial.
exactly.
Like,
The
I mean, again,
controversy.
like I enjoyed some parts of it. It's not a movie I would have. It's one of the thing about the Oscar movies. It's not a movie I would have gone on my way to watch. But like I enjoyed it enough, and uh, but yeah, like for this there for you to describe all of that going on, I'm like, guys, this isn't even that fucking big a deal. Like, what the fuck?
Vagino pasty, yes. A Pinot pasty, yes.
Yeah, like.
All right, so
Why do you think it's got so many nominations if it's so controversial? Do you think that part of like because there's so much publicity of it, that's why it got like
I think people kind of like me when I went into it and didn't know the perspectives of it of like a trans or Mexican audience. I think people saw the movie and thought, "Oh, this is trans. This is woke. Let's vote for this."
okay, so it's like it is like a woke vote kind of thing.
That's what I think, but then like it went against sort of the wokeness of it because like then those groups were like, "Don't do that. We don't like this movie." But I again, like I don't know. It's kind of like a mystery. But there are people that like it. There are people that think it deserved probably deserves Best Picture. Like it's you know people have different tastes.
Uh, Enough said.
All
So,
right,
but okay, so you know that it's my number eight, so we can basically go to your number eight,
yeah, which is Nickel Boys.
which is Nickel Boys. Okay,
All
cool.
right,
So I
and
already
Nines
kind of
out
so
of
my
10.
perspective, you give your perspective.
So I kind of like I think the directorial style, that sort of like first person thing, is cool. I think the way that after what happens, like I like that the future version of the character, you're not seeing he's not in first person anymore. He's like in a third person above him. I think because he's sort of like outside of himself because of like events that happen. I
Yeah.
think that's, a creative thing. I was very confused by the first time it jumped into the future and became him because I'm like, what is this? Who is this person? And like with the age of the person, I thought it was like the grandchild that was named after him or something, or like the son that was named after one of these people. But it's supposed to be the actual guy, but like
Mhm.
he doesn't look like he's old enough to be that guy. But
Mhm.
I whatever. Like I think, yeah, I think it's an interesting movie telling an interesting story and in an interesting way, but kind of like you said, it just doesn't like really deliver much of a emotional punch to me. Like I don't
Yeah.
feel
For
from it.
And the thing is, it should be kind of emotional. Like
Yeah.
it's a pretty emotional type to or it's something that has the capacity to, invite emotionality, right, from this, the subject, and it just didn't. And like if it doesn't, it just means it didn't achieve kind of what it was going for. So,
Yeah, like
yep.
I think you covered a lot of what I had. I think we kind of are on the same track with it though, so I don't have that much more to say about it.
Yeah. Well,
So
then that's gonna take us what into our
number
number
sevens,
sevens? Your number seven or my number seven?
that's the question. I guess because I feel like I just talked two movies in a row. Let's let you do your seven.
Well, my number seven will probably be pretty quick because it is a complete unknown.
Okay.
And I don't know a lick about Bob Dylan. So like that's going to this movie. I was like all like even I watched it with my roommate Frank, and he was like, "Oh yeah, there's June Baez and stuff." I'm like, "Who the fuck is that?" Like, so I'll say again, these other ones they had some like slightly downsides, or they really didn't hit me. This one overall, you know what? It's a biopic, and he sings in a bunch of it. And one thing I was impressed by that I heard afterwards that Frank had read is that like Timothy Chalamet did like sing like he had to sing like 65 of his
Yeah.
songs.
He went on to
And
SNL and hosted as a musical guest and performed Bob Dylan songs on SNL.
yeah, which I'm like that's really cool. I think that's impressive and that's impressive for his performance.
Yeah.
And overall, you know, it's this is like pretty base level enjoyable and stuff. The other
Yeah.
movies either were like lower level enjoyment where it wasn't really wowing me or they had like a little like negative points kind of. This was just solid, enjoyable movie, you know? Like a lot of these other movies, I give them like C pluses, right? Like
Yeah.
all of them were like slightly better than average, in my opinion, right? Complete Unknown was like B minus, just high enough where it was a little above average. I got a little more enjoyment out of it. And it was just good all the way through. Like it was just decent all the way through. And I just enjoyed it, but like nothing special, in my opinion.
Sure.
So that's my number seven. That's really, there's not much more I can say about it. Your number seven.
All right. So my number seven is gonna be um The Brutalist.
Okay.
And so top top it off, Adrian Brody, incredible in this movie. What is it, Guy Pearce? Incredible in this movie. Both really strong performances. I think Felicity Jones, I think she's good, even though like her performance is, maybe not everyone's cup of tea. I thought she did a good job in it. And I'm just gonna say part one of this movie, I was like, this is one of the best movies of the year. I totally see it. I really like this. I really dig everything that's going on. I got lost in part two. Part two didn't really stick the landing for me. It sort of like it was like there was like time jumps that were like kind of made it hard to follow, and like it's just like there's just this really tight part one and then this part two that just feels disconnected to me.
Right. Really convenient that The Brutalist is actually my number six.
Okay,
So,
so we can
it's
both
like I
talk
didn't
about
want to
it.
interrupt what you're saying, but yeah. So you are. I just agree with everything you're saying right now. It's yeah. Part one feels real. I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be like my best movie. Maybe not the best movie, but I was like, this will be one of my best
High,
movies.
it'll
Adrian
be
Brody,
high.
great.
Yeah,
Wow, the setup here. A thing I had a feeling of, I was like, this feels like the way that the first part was portrayed. It felt like I was watching a movie based on a book. And that these were like events that were like very laid out, and it felt like I'm like watching like the Fountainhead meets like Schindler's List kind of. Maybe not
yeah,
Schindler's List, but you get what I'm saying.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, performances were great. I felt like it was going to this really cool place. It had that Oscar movie kind of feel of like, ooh, like, clearly some like sort of artistic cinematography that was like really satisfying, like the picturesque one that where it's like him with the sparks flying up and
yeah.
so many things.
The upside down
And
Statue of Liberty at the beginning of the movie.
yeah, like so much that was hitting a great tone. And yeah, I totally agree. In part two, it just kind of like went down. I was like, by the end, I was like, huh, damn. Like,
Like Adrian Brody was still good in that.
yeah, Adrian Brody was stellar throughout.
I
Um,
he would be my pick for the best lead acting performance.
yeah, I mean, I don't know who all the best actor nominees are, but if you're saying it's between him like Timothy Chalamet, I would
They're like the front
100% pick him.
runners. Other ones with Ray Fiennes, Coleman Domingo, and Sing Sing, and The Apprentice, Sebastian Stan. So you haven't seen two of those movies, but
No, I haven't.
Yeah, but Ray Fiennes would be like the other one that you have seen in
Mhm.
Conclave.
Ah, yes, yes, Ray Fiennes. I would throw him in the ring, though. Nah,
We'll talk more about Conclave when it
yeah,
comes up.
yeah.
But
Okay, but yeah,
yeah,
I mean, Brutalist. I think we feel exactly the same. It had a lot of potential, and also didn't stick the landing, which I feel like that's like a almost was like a sort of a thing with a few movies. Like I've already made the statement, and I'll probably make it again about the ending of some of these movies just not being it,
yeah,
which is tough sometimes. I mean, when you have like depending on what the structure of your movie is, endings can be if you're like building up to something great, like and you just don't stick it, it can really sour the whole movie
yeah.
that way. So
Yeah. So like the Brutalist, I do appreciate. I do um uh, give respect to it for like its grandeur, its scale, the performances in it. Funnily
mhm.
enough,
Yeah.
like the budget of this movie is 10 million. It's like the third cheapest to make movie of the 10 best pictures. There's seven of these movies cost more money to make than The Brutalist. The only two that were cheaper were I'm Still Here and Honora. Everything else cost more money to make than The Brutalist, which is kind of crazy when you think of all the sets
Yeah.
and all like and how big this movie is.
Yeah. I really love and appreciate that like doing more with less kind of thing. I mean, and yeah, like this movie feels huge. The crazy I was thinking about it. I'm like, where do they find the filming for like this like huge structure? Like this very unique strain. Like clearly there's a place where this exists or they built it out of I don't know, like
Okay.
styrofoam and cardboard and made it look like
Yeah.
concrete and stuff. Like I just, I am that's where I like love thinking of, even if I can't figure it out, the art of like production and how they would put that together and bring all these points together in a way that makes sense in a budget.
Yeah.
So that was your number six.
It was my number 7. It was your number
It
6.
was not, dang it. Okay, so wait, we need your six. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, because you were able to join in because it's the same.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
all right, so my number 6, and then so this sort of is the demarcation line of like the bottom 5 of the top 10.
Mhm.
And let me be clear, I do think I do like this movie. Um, I do think this is a good movie. I just like the other 5 movies more. My number 6 is Wicked.
I mean, entirely understandable and acceptable.
Yeah. So I uh, first thing I'm going to address is that I was, re-listening to our old Oscars podcast, and I, stumbled across the one where I was listening, where we were talking about a Dune Part One, and my take on that movie, and I had it pretty low in the ranking, was this is good, but it's half a story, and I sort of took that. And I was like, I could say the same thing about Wicked. I like Wicked more. I like Wicked Part One more than I liked Dune Part One because I think it is still more of a spectacle. You get more of an engaging story and climax within that than Dune Part One gave. But it is only half the story, which is why I think it went from being like a potential Oscar favorite in a lot of things to I don't know what it's going to win. It'll probably win costuming, maybe one or two other things, but like I'm kind of bummed that Ariana Grande is not looking to get the supporting actress Oscar and Cynthia Erivo's not looking to get an Oscar here. I think that's, unfortunate because I do think both their performances are impressive. But
I think there's also
I think there's also sort of the sense that they're the movie's going to get another shot a year from now when part 2 comes out. So in that sense, it's kind of lowered in a lot of its award chances, unfortunately. But in terms of my actual opinions on the movie, I think it's good. I think it's, a well put together musical, but like I also don't think it's uh there's just something about it that is like it didn't pack an emotion as much of an emotional punch as I think I hoped it was would. I don't think I liked it as much as I hoped I would. I still think it's really good. I still think it's an excellent movie, but there's just something about it that's just like not quite there for me.
I totally understand that and respect that because like kind of what you're describing is you know where how I felt on some of the other ones. So I just get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. I had a feeling that because we walked out of that movie and I think you were even higher or pretty high on it leaving the theater. So I kind of had a feeling that you would have this movie higher ranked than I would. But and again, like I kind of feel bad that it's in the bottom half. I think
Mhm.
it like does deserve to be recognized as one of the better of these best picture nominees, but it just didn't quite have the oomph that I wanted from it.
Yeah, I respect that.
All right. So
Um,
that's
so
number five. Do you want to take the number five, or would you like me to go into it? It's up to you.
you go right into your number five.
All right. So these are the top five.
Top
And
fives.
all right. And my number five is gonna be, and I think this is a movie you'll have higher on your list than I do, but it's a great movie, and I've actually watched it twice now. It is Conclave.
Mhm.
This movie rips. This movie's lit. It's fun for the whole family. It's it is rated PG. No, yeah, it's just like a fun, like sort of like just like engaging movie. Like and it doesn't really like you see the movie and you're just like, oh, it's like some like Catholic secrecy, whatever Pope
Mhm.
stuff going on. And you watch the movie and it's like, oh, this is well paced, like it's interesting.
Yep.
There's like lying, there's like election drama. All these these or bishop or cardinal characters are all interesting, and you like every time there's a vote, you're just like, ooh, who's gained votes, or like,
Mhm.
oh, how did this information come up? It's all the acting in it is strong, is good. Like Ray Fiennes, John Lithgow, obviously Stanley Tucci is always good in anything. Um, yeah, just solid movie.
Yep.
Like,
I agree. As you know, it's obviously in my top five too. So,
yeah,
but we can wait, you know, for more of my comments once we get
yeah,
to where it is. But if that's yours for Conclave at five, I
yeah.
will
We can
work
talk
into
more
my
when
number
you have
five.
yours, when you talk about Conclave, and you can go into your five.
Yep. My number five is I'm Still Here,
All right.
which I'm Still Here. Well performed. Really, actually respected the performance by the children. The older teenage children. But this movie is where it was like after I thought about it a little more. When I first left, I was like, that was pretty good. And I actually watched it yesterday, so
Yeah.
I like that was like the last one you know this I wouldn't say this one's like getting a recency bias per se because like I left and I was like this was like a C plus, but I thought about it a little more about the performances and it made it more into like the B minus range for me because I thought really a strong performance by the lead actress
Fernanda
and it
Torres.
did. This one did hit me a little more on some emotional points than some of the other ones did.
Yeah.
Like, which is what you hope for. Like, and this one to say, I think something like Nickel Boys, I think that one was almost a little more serious. Like, it had a more like dangerous. Like, there were moments that really should have tugged me more there. Whereas this did have like some dangerous kind of scary moments, and those landed a little better. And also like with Nickel Boys, you had like just you know I reference that just because it is another like kind of serious tone, shedding light on a sort of like
Yeah.
a historical thing. Um, but this with like subtlety was able to hit that impact, right? It wasn't like as overt. And was able to like Nickel Boys had that one scene with like the you know where basically they take the kids back to get like beaten and stuff, and that was like an impactful scene. And the way they presented it was good, but like that's a heavy scene and it should be impactful. but some of the scenes in I'm Still Here are impactful without being that heavy.
Yeah.
So and again, also just a good, decent movie that's telling a, like shedding light on something that most people don't know about. You and it just portrays this family in such an interesting way of like where they are like kind of victims, but like they don't let that beat them and they like sort of rise above, and that's kind of inspiring and so overall that's why it kind of landed above. Like I don't think it had any flaws per se. I can't say it was like there's anything where I'm like this wasn't good or this wasn't good. It was just a well told story, and it did pull at some of those emotional points. And so that's why I made it in my five. That's why other things either didn't do enough or they had points that I would negative on, and this one did enough, and it hit a couple of those things I would look for.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with it being in your top five since obviously it's also in my top five. Where will it be? Who knows? Um,
Yeah.
but but yeah, so if that's sort of your thoughts on it, you can go into your number four then.
All right. So my number four, and I don't know how controversial this will be, right? But it's in the top five, is Substance, The Substance.
Substance. I had a feeling it wasn't going to be your top three because I know that there's aspects of this movie that are just not going to be geared for you.
Yeah. So this movie, my opinion, and I think I don't know if we did talk about it a little bit, if I texted you about it, but yeah, this movie
Texted me.
was great for about 80% of it. That first 80% was like, wow, I see why everybody's talking about this. I was recommended it by like two different people, and I was like, wow, this movie's excellent. Even when I started getting into some of the more gruesome-ish body horror stuff, this movie could have been like, higher. And I thought about it and I was like, this one, it really did. It was punchy. It was punchy. There was some great like cinematography, uh, moments of this movie. But that ending
The New
totally
Year
killed.
show.
Yeah, that ending totally killed it. And like I even was like, hey, listen, like I get that they wanted to go like full body horror with this grotesque monster thing, but like I'm like, hey, I'm not saying you couldn't do that. I'm just saying like literally how that grotesque monster thing like turned out. That was another movie where I proposed. I watched it with Angela, and afterwards I proposed a better way to structure the end that still kind of gets to the same beat, but like isn't just like weirdly like it just totally lost me at the end. And like that took this movie from being in the A to like being in the like B. And I was just like I was just like I was like, damn, like God, that just felt unsatisfying. And everybody be like, oh, but it's so picturesque because her face crawls through her star and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, good setup and payoff, but like us getting to that point right there at the end was just like, what the fuck? Like she literally just goes outside and then falls apart. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? What is this? Like after she just gratuitously sprays blood for like 5 minutes on screen. It's just like people standing around getting blood sprayed on them. And I'm like, that was never to say this, it was never the tone of the movie. Like it felt fairly serious. It wasn't like comedic. It
Hmm.
wasn't like it was like, oh man, like this, crazy stuff's going on, and like if I don't want to say it was like really serious, but like you get that like it didn't feel like the tone to be gratuitous or over the top until that moment, and then I was just like, wait a minute, we just departed from like the movie that I've been watching, like even when the big monster thing came out or when she became like, I didn't feel like I still thought we were in line and everything made sense, right? Don't use this thing or bad stuff happens. You
Yeah.
use this thing, bad stuff happens. Like I thought everything made sense up to that point, and I was like, man, that sucks. I really wish like they had just done better.
You know what? Like I hear you. I hear that the ending, like, and obviously the ending makes a choice. Like they're going for something there, and it's a choice. And if you don't roll with it, it's gonna be like a what the fuck moment. But I think the fact that you have it as high as you do, kind of, I think goes to show that there is something to respect about a movie that just like makes a choice, does something daring, and executes it about as well as like Amelia Perez does something sort of bold and interesting, and but like the execution maybe isn't completely there. Whereas The Substance, like even in that scene, like you can't deny like obviously like the makeuping and like the production of that. Like there's stuff going into this. And Demi Moore, hope she wins. I hope she wins Best Actress. I'll just say that.
You really think you want her to win Best Actress?
She's one of the front runners. It's her, Mikey, and Fernanda Torres, who's the I'm Still Here actress.
You know, I mean, this is not to downplay her performance at all. I I thought she did good, but like I don't know that I was like, oh, you know what? Actually, you know what? I take this back. I'm actually not. I'm like not giving her the credit of that she really portrayed the monster, like her monstrous self too.
Yeah,
So I think I was like, just taking. You know what? I think they all. It's a legitimate running for
yeah.
each of them. I will even get even if in Nora, like I can say that like Nora, the whole movie didn't like wow me by any means. But like I did, I that was one point. The only almost one of the only good things I even said is I was like, wow, her performance was good.
Yeah.
So I respect that.
Is that all you have to say about The Substance?
Yep. But again, 80-90% of that movie was great. This could have been like I might even have put it into like closer to the like number one if that landing just totally it did not stick for me. But I get maybe that it totally worked for some other people.
I'll have more to say on it later. Who knows where it
Hmm.
will be?
Yeah.
But at number four, I have Honora,
Hmm.
and so obviously it didn't speak to you the same way it speaks to many others, and it's not my favorite movie, but it's pretty high. I have it number four out of these 10, and it was high in terms of all the movies I saw last year. And one thing that I think does make this movie special is the way that it sort of turns itself on its head partway through the movie, because you start with this what you're kind of expecting the movie to be is this sort of like whirlwind romance, kind of Pretty Woman style, of the like a stripper girl and like the wealthy guy having this sort of whirlwind romance, and like it's paced and edited in like this sort of like romantic glossy way, like when they get married and they go to Vegas, and it's all this like it's all fun and energetic. And then there's like it's probably about halfway through the movie, it changes up. Like his parents find out about the marriage. Some Russian gangsters show up to put an end to it. And what was this like, comedy, like this sort of like romance like thing, becomes like a slapstick comedy with Honora and these like goons, like just sort of like do do do, like looking for this drunk oligarch's son somewhere in the city, and just like it becomes like a comedy movie in like this like interesting way, like where it's just it's just sort of like entertaining. And you got the Gira Borisov's character, who's like the guy that doesn't talk a lot, and the bald guy, and he's just sort of like this like sort of quiet character that sort of like comes to like spend the rest of the movie with him and Honora going through the stuff, and you see like their dynamic. I again, it's like kind of hard to explain why I like this movie, particularly seeing how you don't respond to it, but it is a very unique movie. It's like I think it does have like something special about it. It's not just like a generic movie. Like it's doing something different. Like it's like you look at this movie and you think it's one thing, and it doesn't do that. Like it takes a different direction, and it's yeah. Um, uh, Honora's good, and it might win Best Picture.
Interesting. Yeah. This is where I'm like, again, I can respect how much anybody else likes it, but like I'm like maybe it's just going over my head. That's just all it just comes to. Maybe it's just not landing. Like now I like your perspective. I do like your perspective to say like, hey, it almost sets itself up to be one thing and then it sort of departs from that. I One thing, and I was trying to like find, sometimes I try to say, hey, try to think about it deeper, try to find something in it. Well, why would this be a best picture? Um, I'll say one, and I like I don't there wasn't a lot of good cinematography to me. There wasn't a lot of like really picturesque shots. And so I was like, okay, so like without that being the thing, without like more artistry of the film crafting, like we're really focused on the story. We're focused on the story and we're focused on the characters. And I think there is some good character depth, right? Where, you learn more about the characters just by the goings on the story, like the sort of the guy who's like the organizer, the one that's like leading everything,
Yeah,
and stuff. Like we get who he is or what the influence of the boy's father is, that he's like going to these limits and doing all these things, and they sort of shape themselves as characters by just observing them as they go along. We get that like the silent guy's character. He's like a decent dude. Um, through it all, again, it's a the exploration of these characters I see through this movie. Um, but again, in the end, like hey, I could say it like this: in the end, I just feel like I don't care about any of them. I'm like, cool, like this was great. Like we watched these people and explored who they were and stuff. And I'm like, at the end, I'm like, yeah, but I don't care. I just don't care. I don't care about any of them or what happens to any of them. I didn't become overly invested in like whether everything works out or not. And again, that's clearly I'm in a minority of people. Um, but I can knowing, understanding that, seeing that. Maybe it just didn't connect with me, but I can see why people were invested in like exploring these characters, exploring this scope into, some kind of like slice of life type thing. I can understand it. I just, it just it ain't for me.
I gotcha, brother. But yeah, so like you mentioned, the writing was something you could see. It's nominated for screenplay. It's also got nomination for Best Director, where it's like one of two movies that kind of seem to be in line to win Best Director. Either Sean Baker for Anora or Brady Corbet for The Brutalist. So
Mhm.
those are sort of the two vying for that slot. We'll see who actually wins, but yeah, Anora, that's my number four. So I think that leaves both of us with our top three,
The top three.
where we're only going to have one movie that overlaps in this entire top three.
Yep, it's looking
And
like it.
if I'm going first, then I'm the first one to bring it up because my
Bring it
number
up.
three is Dune 2.
Okay.
And Dune 2 is really, really good. It's just a really good movie. Way better than Dune 1. All the we sort of I talked about this in my end of the year list because I did have Dune 2 in my top 10 because it's really good. It's just a real good movie that Timothy Chalamet, he's not best actor for this movie, but he does a good Paul Atreides. Like the whole cast is good. Javier Bardem, Austin Butler, Rebecca Ferguson, Florence Pugh. Good, good, good. It's kind of hard to sort of say more about this movie because I feel like I've talked about it a lot,
Yeah.
but it kind of succeeds and improves in every way on the first Dune movie.
Mhm.
And quite frankly, I think it's wild that it's not the front runner to win Best Picture, and why it's not the runner to win like many of the awards that it's nominated for. Uh, it's kind of weird that this movie's not like more of a like strong contender this season than it is. Like I remember leaving the movie and being like, "Oh shit, like if this came out last year, Oppenheimer would have been in trouble." Like
Yeah.
but like this year it doesn't even seem to have the juice to outbeat Conclave, like let alone Oppenheimer.
Yeah. You know what I would imagine in some ways is I think because I'm just gonna throw this out there that maybe because it's kind of like a sci-fi movie, It's like
That
sort of sci-fi fantasy like realm. They're just docking it basically.
I think that's part of it. I think there's also the Empire Strikes Back or the Two Towers effect where people are aware that this is two out of three. And so they're like, well, we can give Denis Villeneuve all the stuff
This
on
is
number three as long as he lands it.
this is not 2 out of 3.
Well, there's gonna be a third Dune movie.
Oh well, so FYI, the Dune book ends at the end of 2.
I
So
get that, but like it's like
yeah,
people recognize there's gonna be another one. And
yeah.
like this
So
movie also like this movie ends on a more complete story than
yeah,
Dune Part One ended, but it also ends like it looks like there's more to come.
yeah. So I'll assume it, 3 is the events of Dune Messiah, which is a
Yeah.
book that's like half the size of Dune. So
Yeah, that's probably
and
what's gonna happen.
yeah, even though there are other books after that, but yeah, Dune Messiah I haven't actually read, but I did read Dune. I read it in between. I read it after part one and before part two. Um, and so, but yeah, I imagine I guess I can see that as well. That I think it did get docked for the sci-fi aspect of it. It's kind of like why would we want? I think there is, obviously there's always like the
There's genre
political and like the
bias.
biases, but it's like got to let the artistic thing win over the big motion picture, sci-fi event movie. Um, but our comments are all pretty much the same on that. We did touch on it in our top 10. So, and obviously I'll comment on it. It's not my number 3. So,
Yeah, but you can go into your number three since you'll be able to touch on it more later.
yeah, so my number 3 is Conclave, which
Conclave.
you spoke about already. I I agree basically with everything you said. Solid movie. I was very intrigued the whole time. It's up my alley kind of thing because I like movies that are like intrigue mystery a little bit. Solid performances, like decent kind of like delivery twist at the end. Suspenseful. The score sets the tone really well. Believable, well written, good cinematography, good set pieces. Just like, what are you gonna say about it? Like, it's just good. It's just solid across the board, overly solid. Like, I gave it like an A-, where I was like, just well put together. Like,
Yeah.
I would say it didn't super wow me. To get into my like upper A, right? A well put together, well written story. Like just everything about it being really good and solid can get you into the A- for me, but like you gotta kind of like go a little further and wow me a bit to get like an A+ or an A out of me. You
Yeah.
have to be like practically flawless and like have hit some kind of special thing to be that exceptional. But this feels flawless. Like this doesn't I can't really say anything bad about it. So that's number 3.
All right. Yeah. Like Conclave, and like I've mentioned how Honora is a likely winner of Best Picture.
Hmm.
Conclave is kind of like the other one that I've heard as being like a good like an ups like not necessarily upset, but like Honora Conclave seem to be like the two that like seem most likely. It could also just be a different movie, but the rumblings seem to be on one of those two movies. More
Hmm.
likely Honora, but Conclave is like, a potential there. And it's probably gonna win editing. I think it probably deserves to win editing. It could win the other screenplay award for adapted. Yeah, it's good.
Yep. It's just good.
Yeah.
So a number 2.
Number two
So my number 2 is Wicked,
is Wicked.
and it's total bias. I'm gonna say because in my head I'm like I think it is reasonably in the top 5, but I'm probably pushing it a little bit higher because I think it is also as far as how well put together it is. It is well put together. I
Yeah.
think it's well put together. The musical performances are spectacular. The costuming is spectacular. The movie is just great across the board. It it all delivers like, that I'll say that there could have been more emotional depth in some things. I don't think the practical performances were all supreme. Like I don't think the main characters like her like again non-musical performance parts were like absolutely the best. I wouldn't have put her up for best actress. I think Ariana Grande's though,
I
which is
I like
totally
Ariana Grande Slade. She killed it. Like I think
I I literally was like, like it might not have been fair, but before I watched the movie, I was definitely like, oh my God, Ariana Grande's in this movie, like what the fuck? And I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, she like stole that show. That's
yeah,
like
that's
she
how I
I
feel. And if she wasn't up against the main character in another movie, like who stole her movie, like Zoe Saldana, like I think Ariana would have a better chance this year. But it is
yeah,
what it is in that respect. Um, uh, you know what part two is because you've seen Wicked before. Do
yes.
you? I'm curious. Do you feel like maybe knowing what's to come, you feel a little more satisfied with this movie?
That's again, I think there is I admit I put it higher because I have a bias that allows me to put it higher, which is one I do kind of know where it's going. And so I recognize that's why I'm like, this can't be complete. It's the same, I agree. Same thing with Doom Part One. Now we compared to Doom Part One, and I said Doom Part One is not a finished story.
No.
It felt incomplete, right? It felt like, this is half a movie, and now we're gonna see the other half. Doom Part Two feels kind of like it. I mean, it. If you didn't even watch Doom Part One, you probably could just watch Doom Part Two, and it'd be great and spectacular and a good movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Doom Part One totally doesn't feel great, even if it was still big and practical. And there's a lot of Doom Part One that's kind of just cinematography and big and open and like setting up. This movie, it feels kind of wrapped up into a complete story. You know that like obviously there's more, but it's like okay, cool. We set it. Here's the characters. Here's what they're trying to achieve. Here's what's going. And by the end, they essentially achieve it, even though they resolve everything that's set up in this movie and then set up more. And so it comes to a like a close. And so that's how I'm able, even if it isn't a full movie, to feel way more satisfied with it. And because I think they just did a great job of bringing it to a close at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I
Um,
agree that a Wicked is not in the same exact camp as Dune Part One was. I agree that Wicked, does put together more of a complete story than Dune Part One did. I like, but it is still there where it's like, I don't know what's coming. I don't know what happens next. I would like to know, I'm not gonna ding it entirely because it does tell a good story. But like there is like a sense where like well, I'm left and I'm like, I don't know what the rest of the story is, and
mm,
like it is in a way that I didn't dock Dune Part Two, where it like leaves off and it's like I don't know the whole story, but it felt a little more complete to me in a way. Um, but yeah, like I do think Wicked's good, and I think your placement on it on your list is more than fine. It's a good movie. A lot of people like it.
yep. So, but that is my number two, which
Goes into my number two.
goes into your number two. Yeah.
My number two, and maybe a bit of a surprise making it as high as it did, but is gonna be I'm Still Here. Um,
Yeah, tell me. So it's funny that like, I'm still here made it in my top five, obviously too. Tell me some more what you thought about
so I think you sort of got at a lot of what is strong about the movie, like the performances, like it all feels very natural. Like all these they do like come across and they do get portrayed as like a real family. You feel like it feels like a real family.
it. Hmm.
The lead actress Fernanda Torres playing this character, this real life person, like the way she sort of carries herself, like in a way where she's like protecting her children and also like trying to figure out what's happened. I don't feel like it's too much of a spoiler or to sort of say that the basic plot of the movie is that she is the wife of a man who was a former member of who is a former legislator, I believe. I can't remember what the
Congressman.
congressman, yeah,
Yeah.
in Brazil. But in the midst of a military coup takeover, he's no longer obviously there is no longer he's no longer part of that government. But then one day he's taken in for questioning by the military government, and then it's like the question of like he like what has happened to him while she is there to sort of like take care of the family and sort of like get stuff, try and figure stuff out. Like this is a time where she's not on her husband's bank account, so she can't access the funds of their family. Like she's kind of having to go through a lot. Um, and like for a lot of the movie, I was watching it. And I'm like, this is good. This is like I was just sort of watching the movie and like kind of like how you said you left the movie and you almost felt it was like a C or something. I'm watching the movie, I'm like, this is pretty good. Like there wasn't I wasn't like getting this feeling of this is, incredible and impactful. However, towards the end of the movie, there's like a time jump that happens, and then the main character like she goes and she finds like a home movie. She starts watching like a clip like basically her family like from basically before the events of like the husband going away, and like it sort of hits me in that moment that like that whole like beginning section of the movie before like he goes away is like showing you this family. And like I think because the movie is doing such a good job of like just sort of like going as the time goes, that it's easy to forget what this family looked like at the beginning. And I just got hit by like, oh, this is what was lost. This is what was lost by this like this. And like it in on a grand scale of things, like many people were disappeared by this military government, and this is just one of the cases of a person that was disappeared. And like this family, this happy family that used to exist, like they were forever changed because they just absconded. Like this guy was taken away, and I just started crying. Like
Yeah.
I started crying in the theater when that sort of like registered to me what I had basically seen, and like it just hit me in a way I did not expect to be hit.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
there's like another thing that happens even later into the movie when like it shows her like old, and like she sees like she's like on like watching TV, and it shows like like there's like a still picture of her husband like on the TV, and you see like she sort of activates for a second because she sees him, and then she remembers that he's not there anymore.
Hmm.
Kind of spoiling the movie in talking about that, but it's also real life events.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and when that happened, I started crying because like it really just sort of hit me like the true human tragedy of the sort of loss of this family, the loss of this love, because
Hmm.
they were like genuinely in love with each other, and they had a strong good family, and it disappeared. It was taken away.
Yep, I agree. I like how you put that, and it's kind of what I was touching on, where I was saying like the in these subtleties there was great like emotional power, and
Yeah,
those were kind of the similar moments that tugged on me as well. Where I was like, damn, like, but it's interesting that and I'm assuming that they're just portraying it in like essentially a truthful manner, but like how you almost miss that until you kind of get to the later parts because the family tries to be so strong overall. Like
yeah.
they just kind of roll with that. Like I mean, you can imagine most people, if your father in a family was just like abducted, how much turmoil people would be in, like how not okay most of them would be in a
I,
sense, and how they
another
just all keep it together.
another aspect of it is you spend like a good time like there's a good chunk of the time where it's not a like, oh, he's gone. It is a, how do we get him back? Like
Yeah.
in like the way that sort of changes over time. Like it's not like it's like a sort of gradual, and then it happens, and it's like,
Mhm.
oh well, like at that point you also sort of like aren't surprised by it, but like because you've like grown accustomed, and it's like the slow trickle of change of
Mhm.
like sort of adapting to this situation, that when you realize what all that had happened, it sort of, that's when it sort of can hit you.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. I mean, in it being this high on your list, I totally respect. Like, I respect any placement on the list, but like, I totally get that impact. I'll say, and it's maybe just that, like, for me, it wasn't hitting quite as hard. But like you,
Yeah.
I totally see and agree why, why it would be placed there for you. Um, but with that, hey, we're gonna be leading into both of our number ones, but
If you're doing the math, you already know what our number ones are, but I guess I can go first with my number one being The Substance.
the substance. Oh my God, go right ahead.
Well, what hasn't already been said about this movie? It's like what I think sets it apart across all these other movies is the way that it feels so singular. It's so different. It's so unique. It's honestly like it's crazy that it even got the nomination because horror is so often overlooked by the Academy. Like the fact that like people still talk about Hereditary not getting nominated for at least Tony Collette's acting, like let alone like anything else. But this movie,
Bullshit.
like for some reason, it was able to make that breakthrough, and it's gotten it's made its way into Best Picture. It's made its way into screenplay. Demi Moore is not only nominated for Best Actress, but she's kind of the front runner. She's won a lot of the awards leading up to it, and so it's the little movie that could. It came out on my birthday. Um, that's not the main factor why I like it, but it's and as much as you liked it for 80% of the movie and didn't like that ending, I like that ending. Um, uh,
Yep. I can,
the the blood spurting, I've always felt I didn't like that in that theater where all the blood is spurting that there's a kid there. I've never liked that. I felt uncomfortable with a child being in that scene in the movie, particularly because even before the blood, like there's like ladies with their tits out like dancing. I'm like I guess like that's not obscene particularly, but it's like why is this kid here? Like what also like I another thing to talk about with this movie is just this like sort of like fake Hollywood world that it's set in, where it's like an approximation of what the real world is like, but it's like not really. Like everything's like not right. Like the oh yeah, we've got you on the daytime show and we got the New Year's show. Like just things are like the thing. There's no like real like anything there. Dennis Quaid, he's in it, like eating that shrimp. It's crazy.
my God, yeah. I knew, I was only thinking, I'm like, this plays in it, chewing.
Um, Demi Moore already talked about her. Margaret Qualley, you know, just making this sort of like star like making appearance in this movie. Just like yeah, the substance is like it's good. I think it is worth the hype. Like, and even you, like, again, you didn't have it as your number one, and it was to begin with, wasn't necessarily gonna be. I didn't really necessarily think it was gonna be fully your cup of tea, but even you were like, yeah, it's still like one of the better movies on this list. Like,
Yep. It's just, it's for a large part of it, well done. And then, yeah, and it just loses it at the end.
it's, I, it didn't lose me. I left that movie. I was pretty stunned. I was like, damn, that
Hmm.
movie really did that. And not a lot of movies, like no other movie on this list, like had me like sort of just like in this like state of like, wow, I just saw that.
Hmm.
Like, and it was I want to say in my ranking last year, I think it was only my number four, which I still think is pretty high when like with how many movies I saw. I think, with what my top three were, like if Challengers was nominated for Best Picture, that would be my number one. If
Yeah.
Flow was nominated for Best Picture, that would be my number one. If Hundreds of Beavers, that was ever gonna get nominated, but
Hmm.
the substance. It's got the substance. It's got it's yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You have my comments, but I mean, to be honest, I would be like probably there with you. If it had a better ending, I'd be like, wow, that was like number one movie. That was great. Also, again, I'll touch on this just to make sure it gets its mention. If Challengers was nominated, it would be number one.
Yeah, it's the best movie of the
And
year.
yeah, best movie of the year. Like forget everything. Truly, it's not. And I think I actually had that thought before. The Challengers didn't get nominated. I was like, why didn't it get nominated? And then you bring it up again. I'm like, wait a minute, why didn't it get nominated? Like, yeah.
It's
I don't
because
get it.
it's because I'm cursed to either like have my favorite movie be, Everything Everywhere All at Once and it's the obvious best picture, or my favorite movie will be completely snubbed by the Oscars and won't make even the slightest appearance.
Mm.
Such as Saltburn, which I still like Saltburn. I don't know, like, because I've heard so much criticism of that movie where it's like I
Yeah.
need to rewatch it to make sure it's like it definitely still hit me when I watched it, so it still worked for me then. And then there's like I was re-listening to our oldest podcast and like I was talking about The Last Duel and I'm like, man, I forgot how much I liked that movie and how much no one gave a shit about it. It's like I feel like that movie's fully just like, oh, that happened, but we don't talk about it.
I mean, but didn't we basically agree on both of those movies felt the same? We're like,
Yeah,
wow, this is
we
really
both
good.
both of us agreed that like it's
Yeah.
wild that they and yeah, but
Something to be like that.
they just
Well,
need to punish me. They just need to make me unhappy.
it is specifically about you. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I don't hear a lot about what's going on, but I did hear they were like, this kid does a podcast and we want him to be look like an idiot.
Whatever's number one, fuck that movie.
Yeah, in particular. So, all right, let's finish it off with my number one, which again, process of elimination is Dune 2.
Or, yeah.
Again, we talked about it in our top 10. You already talked about it. It's also a solid throughout movie. It's an ending movie, right? It's a part two.
The part
And even
two,
if it
yeah.
does have a part three coming, to like I said, it is the end of a book. Like it is a complete like ending to what it is. It's big, it's spectacular. Cinematography is great. Performances across the board are good. I'll say like the performances in that movie are not like spectacular to say, but they're all good. They're all good, and then a lot of the movie is great.
I think that Austin Butler and Javier Bardem are arguably give spectacular
Okay,
performances,
yeah. So sorry, yeah,
but they
Austin
are
Butler.
supporting. Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, Austin Butler, I would say actually, yeah, spectacular, but he's him. So,
yeah.
um, I'll actually say though, I think Zendaya's performance is like sort of like honestly, it's like pretty mid.
It's
IMO.
fine. I think
It's yeah, it's okay. Like
she's
it's
better
an
in
okay.
challengers.
It's the other thing too is here's a again having read the book, her role in the book, that character's role, and I think I might have talked about this before.
I
Her
think
role
you
in the
did.
book
Yeah,
is not that big. Like
yeah.
she's there. She definitely is important to a degree, but like she's not like somebody you would. She's not like you cast Zendaya as that role to make sure she's a really important like big actress at the time kind of thing. So it's like I think in some ways they were like shoehorning her into the movie more, trying to make her more significant. When it's like I would even give her the credit. That I'm like she probably didn't have a lot to work with. It's like
Yeah.
this character isn't like that big a deal overall. So like what is she gonna do with it? But that being the case, again, I think it just hits the spectacle of it and performances, all of it comes together to make a movie that again to say flawless, but hits a bunch of good big punches, and that's why in the end I'm like Wicked. Um, the Wicked I have like a bias to, but like I wouldn't even. It's like the thing I didn't mention on Wicked is like why there's bias is that I've been like stuck on this. Me and Angela listen to the soundtrack like every day and walk around the house like singing the songs. So it's stuck with me. It's actually hard
Yeah.
to not like have more positive feelings for this movie. When I watched it in the theaters twice, not even like particularly by like choice. Like I was like, oh my God, let's go watch it again. But like by consequence of like, oh, we're gonna see it with somebody else, and I would see it again. And then I listen to the soundtrack often as much. And it's just improved my opinion of it. But
Yeah.
even that was like, like was it like super good? Dune 2 is just again good, solid. The fact that it's not a little more prominent in the Oscars, per what you were saying, is like kind of like, yeah, like this might be just some like snubbery a little bit.
Yeah, like I said it before, like it's kind of wild to me that this is not the best picture front runner. Even though it's not my number one,
Yeah.
it's my number three. Like until I saw I'm Still Here, it was my number two. Like it's high. It's high for me. It was in like my top 10 last year. I think it's a phenomenal movie. And to be honest, like if I were gonna pick what like makes the most sense as a best picture without like knowing what's been talked about and like what seems to have the juice behind it, I'd be like probably Dune Part Two. That seems like it should be Best Picture, but that's not the world we live in. It didn't even get a Best Director nom.
Well, yeah, Oscars are bullshit. So,
Yeah. And I think that's also something that we talked about in every Oscar, where like we do this so that we can appreciate some movies that we wouldn't have otherwise. But this award show is kind of balls in a lot of ways. It got it right so supremely with Everything Everywhere All at Once kind of sweeping stuff. And I agreed with Oppenheimer winning as much as it did last year, but like sometimes it takes a big swing and a miss.
yeah. So this year, I really feel like, yeah, like overall, the way I came away from my general feeling of all these movies was there are a bunch of clear ones where I'm like, yeah, Substance, I felt like it should have gotten nominated. And the fact that again, should have been hard for it in some sense was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, cool. Nice job. You got that one in there. Challengers not being there, totally stupid. Like dumbest fucking thing ever.
Yeah.
The ones that were like, okay, yeah, Dune's in there. The Brutalist is in there. I'm Still Here. Like all those make a lot of sense why they should be nominated. And then we start getting to like a few of the other ones where we're like, and okay, and Nora, I'm gonna say that I'm the minority, right? I'm the minority.
And not
Um,
liking it. Yeah.
yeah, but clearly, that one would have deserved to be in there. But then there are these ones that I'm like, I'll even say like with Nickel Boys, like maybe it's us. I don't know what its talk is, but it had some like qualities about it that are like, oh, this is like an Oscar-ish movie,
I think it I think it also had a bit of like an underdog thing to it because like going into the Oscars, it was basically one of like 9 out of the 10 movies were like pretty like strongly in that contention, and then there was like an extra slot where like it felt like a Nickel Boys could have been it, a Real Pain could have been in that slot. Some
Mhm.
people wanted Sing Sing in that slot. I wanted Challengers in that slot, but it went to Nickel Boys, and it like
Yeah.
I think it's because it was a smaller movie that not everybody
Mhm.
really saw. Um, I I I think what got it the nomination was that first person like
Yeah.
perspective.
That's
That's
really
kind
like
of what makes it exceptional.
that is it. Truly. Like that's what take
Yeah,
if it was somehow just portrayed normally, I would have been like, this is like this movie's a whatever. Like,
and then yet they didn't nominate it for cinematography,
okay, yeah, see, Oscars are bullshit.
but
But
Emilia
yeah,
Perez got it.
this year's Oscars overall, not like I don't love this Oscars nomination across the board. I've
Yeah,
just got too much like meh about it. It's too like I feel like at least in the past, some of the past years have been where I'm like, oh, these are all nominee worthy movies to a degree. Some are better, some are worse. I This is the year where I'm like a few of these, like in my opinion, I'm not sure why they're here. Um, and it's like
I think
whatever, that's what you get though.
in that sense though, I think it's would be worth it for us to look back because we're like 5 years into the 2020s worth of movies. It might
Mhm.
be worth looking back to see like what, especially with like back in 2020, 2021, like what really does stand out. And I think maybe bonus episode, we go back and we make a top 10 of all the best picture nominees since we started doing
I like
this.
it.
I like that.
What about top
Uh,
five?
top five. I, I,
Would
top
that be
five's
two?
fine.
That might be two. Would that be two top five for the last five?
That would be good. I like that. I feel like my entire top five is probably going to be just different number ones from other years, but maybe there'll be a
Yeah.
number two in there.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Well, we're gonna do that. Everybody,
All
if you
righty.
stuck with us to this point, be on the lookout for the top five or
Like,
last five, or maybe top 10, whatever. Like we're gonna
we'll
do
see.
a last 5 years roundup. But
Sort of retrospective.
brother, bring us to a close here with some of the other categories and such as you have in our past years.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the other. I so I've tried to watch like documentaries in the past, like the list, but like this year there are two nominees in the documentary category that fully were just never going to be something I could watch because they were only in select theaters that never came anywhere near me. So I was like, okay, well, I can't even watch all five of these, so I wasn't gonna, I just didn't watch. I watched one of the documentary nominees, but I didn't get to the other two because I felt like, what's the point? Especially when I realized that the front runners were those two movies I couldn't see. But
Mhm.
I've seen all five international movies, and the five of those are Amelia Perez, Girl with a Needle, I'm Still Here, Seed of the Sacred Fig, and Flow. You may recall Flow being my second favorite movie of last year. And so that would be, I would love it to win. I don't think it is going to win. I think it's between I'm Still Here and Amelia Perez because, they got the Best Picture noms.
Mhm.
I would obviously pull for I'm Still Here to win, but Amelia Perez had that juice going into the original nomination, so maybe it'll pull out the win still.
I'd
Um,
love if I'm Still Here won for the international because I think it's a good movie, and I don't want to say I hope it doesn't win Best Picture, but like I I I would like something else to win Best Picture.
yeah,
So it'd be great if it could get the international,
yeah,
and one of the ones that I would probably want to push for actually getting Best Picture would win that.
yeah. Like maybe like you might not you wouldn't be upset if Conclave won, I assume.
I would not be upset at Conclave one. I would like a Conclave. I would be like, yeah, I'd be
Yeah,
down with that. Dune 2, I'd be down with that. Um, um, I'm Still Here. If I'm Still Here won Best Picture, I would be like, solid. I get it.
exactly. I would not be upset. I don't know.
Yeah,
Again, like it's Conclave and Honora seem to be the two likeliest, but we'll see on tomorrow with Oscars.
yeah. If Honora
Um,
wins, I will be like, I disagree, but all right, do as you will. The
uh,
Oscars are bullshit.
so I wanted to touch on Seed of the Sacred Fig and Girl with a Needle because I watched them once they were nominated. Both really good movies. Yeah, like I liked both of them more than Amelia Perez. I'd say like Seed of the Sacred Fig, I would be like my number three in the category. Girl with a Needle would be my number four because Flo and I'm Still Here, I just thought were both really exceptional. Best animated feature, our nominees are Inside Out 2, The Wild Robot, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and once again, Flow. Now, this race seems to be like between Wild Robot and Flow. Like it's one of those two seems like they're gonna win. And it like I really, really want Flow to win out of those two. Um, partially because I like it more, but also because I don't even think The Wild Robot is the second best animated movie of last year. I don't even think it's the third best. I
I have to
I
say,
like Inside Out 2 and Memoir of a Snail more than it.
I saw like I just sometimes get sent some trailers, and I could be wrong, but like Wild Robot 2 looked like trash.
Wild Robot, it's
Yeah.
not trash. It is not trash at all. I like that movie, but like and I know multiple people that that like are like blown away by it and think it's like great. I've seen people say that it's one of the best DreamWorks movies ever made, and it just I didn't see that movie. I did
Mhm.
not see that movie. It's good. It's kind of like it's also like it kind of has like a Wally vibe in that half of this movie was really solid. The other half of the movie, it's like they didn't know where they were going with it.
Mhm.
and it's just, you know, they're just trying their best. But it's a solid movie. It's just I think it would be a shame if it beat Flow, because Flow is a one of a kind thing, and it's streaming on Max now.
Yeah. Oh, I actually did start watching Flow because you recommended it. We didn't end up continuing to watch it because we were like distracted. We weren't putting our full attention on it. I'm like, this movie
And
has no
it's
words. I have to put my
yeah,
entire
it's
attention
a
on
silent
this.
movie. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no talking in it. All right, so and then we can sort of talk on we've talked about a lot of the acting awards, but actor in a leading role: Adrian Brody, Timothy Chalamet, Coleman Domingo in Sing Sing, Ray Fiennes in Conclave, Sebastian Stan, The Apprentice. Adrian
Adrian
Brody
Brody
deserves to win.
should win it
Timothy Chalamet
100%.
could pull an upset, but honestly, Adrian Brody deserves it. It's
Mm.
it's you know he did the damn thing.
Yep.
Actress in a leading role: we have Cynthia Erivo in Wicked, Carla Sofia Gascon and Amelia Perez, Mikey Madison and Nora, Demi Moore, The Substance, and Fernanda Torres and I'm Still Here. I
Yep.
would
The ones
like
we talked
Demi
about.
Moore.
Yeah, definitely would not give it to Homegrown Wicked. I felt like literally her performances, not her musical performances, were just like mid. They're like, this is okay.
I liked her in Wicked. I thought she was
Yeah.
good,
She's
you know, it's particularly in the singing performances, but like
yeah.
yeah, she wouldn't be my pick either.
Yeah.
But nothing particularly against her though.
Yeah.
Uh
Her
act
musical performances are fantastic. I mean, as it would be, yeah, I mean, you gotta be, right?
yeah, yeah. Actor in a supporting role, we have Yura Borisov in Anora, Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain, Edward Norton in A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce in The
Oh,
Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong in The Apprentice. Now, you have not seen The Apprentice and you have not seen A Real Pain, but you would you say Guy Pearce would be your favorite of the three you've seen?
possibly, yeah. I mean,
Guy
I
Pearce,
would
Edward Norton, Yura Borisov.
I want to say though, I thought Edward Norton did a great job in Complete Unknown.
I thought he was solid. You know,
Mm,
my pick would be so Kieran Culkin is basically he's already won the award. Like he's won every
mm,
precursor award, and part of it is that he's low key one of the main characters of the movie. He's not really a supporting actor. He's in the movie as much as the lead actor is. Like it's about these two guys.
yeah,
So it's kind of a stretch to say that he's supporting in that movie, but like he
yeah.
does a good job in it. If I were to give the award to someone, I thought Jeremy Strong was really good in The Apprentice. I thought he was very good in that, but he's not going to
Mm,
win.
yeah.
I've
Fair enough.
I've not watched what's the show they're in. Kieran Culkin and Jeremy Strong. It's the one Succession.
Succession. I watched a few episodes, didn't get into it. Everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, so good." I'm like, I don't get
Yeah.
it.
So they're the two brothers in that show, and so like there's been like talk of like the
Yeah.
two brothers from Succession now like going for Oscars after they both got Emmys. And
Mhm.
I've not watched more than like part of an episode of Succession, but my I like Jeremy Strong more in his role.
Mhm.
Actress in a supporting role: Monica Barbaro in A Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande in Wicked, Felicity Jones, The Brutalist, Isabella Rossellini in Conclave, and Zoe Saldana in Amelia Perez.
Zoe Saldana and give it to her. Sorry, Ariana.
Sorry, Ariana. Like we
Yeah.
both yeah, it's unfortunate. Um yeah,
Zoe
I don't
Saldana
want to
carried. I want to say like this. She carried that movie.
yeah, she did. It was
Yeah.
she she deserves it. I'm not going to get into any of the more technical categories this time because I feel like we've already taken stuff up a little bit. But yeah, so excited for these Oscars. As I've said before, I really hope Flo wins. That's kind of like the big one. I'm going into this day and just hoping to see Flo win animated feature. And if it doesn't, I'll be sad.
I really hope that for you because I trust your opinion and I expect that it is probably deserving of it. But
Mm.
you also might be biased because it's about a cat. And I saw that it was a cat doing pretty cat things. So
It is about a cat. There are dogs in it.
I saw there are other creatures in it.
Yeah,
From the parts I was watching, like there are other creatures, but it's a cat doing cat stuff. So is it really that good or is it just a cat doing cat stuff?
it's a cat doing cat stuff, and that is really good.
Yeah.
It is both.
All right. Well, I still will support your pick because I'll trust that it is pretty solid.
Yeah,
Um,
all
yeah.
made in Blender.
Well, I think that's pretty much it for our Oscars of 2025 Best Pictures. Um, any other closing remarks? Matt, do you have
Um,
anything?
no, yeah, like in a way, this year sort of feels like maybe lesser than prior years, but I think the substance presence in this award show is, you know, important. I think
Mm,
that's special. I think that it means something. And yeah, it's 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 the Oscars.
yep, it's the Oscars. Oscars are bullshit, but we still will continue to check out
And
their
it,
nominees.
and this year it's on Hulu, so it's actually, relatively accessible to watch it.
Good for them, making
Yeah,
it actually like something that people will maybe try to watch. So
yeah. Rather than like, oh, do you have TV provider with
mhm.
ABC? You don't? Sucks.
Sucks for who? The Oscars?
Yeah. You want us to watch it, put it on something. I watched the SAG Awards for the first time because it was on Netflix.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's pretty much it there. So
Yep.
until next time, I've been Robert.
And I'm Ryan.
Peace out, folks.
Peace.